Well, Aboriginal activists are planning on using Invasion Day protests to demand freedom for Palestine and call on the Albanese government to cut all ties with Israel. Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe, of course, is leading the charge on this. She told The Australian today, quote, Palestinians know what the trauma of invasion, of dispossession, state violence and occupation is like, just as First Peoples in this country do. We share a reality of ongoing genocide and are both yet to experience liberation and the acknowledgement of our sovereignty. Our struggle under settler colonialism is one struggle. Together we're fighting for our humanity, for freedom, for land back and for lasting peace. Oh, my God. Joining me now is former Labor MP Michael Danby and Sky News contributor Nicole Flint. Michael, what a load of crap.
Caleb, you introduced a great word to your listeners, cookers, but people who wear the tinfoil hat. I mean, Lydia does so much damage to the Indigenous cause with her cooker-like behaviour. There's another bloke at PricewaterhouseCoopers who's apparently, saying the same kind of stuff. What's happened to the world? It's become upside down. I think October 7th has unhinged a lot of people. First of all, there's the war that's going on over there, and then there are all of the cookers like Lydia Thorpe and the bloke at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and there's so many of them. It's unhinged people.
I know. I feel like it's the same with anti-Semitism, right? Like there's always been this undercurrent there, but I think October 7 just sort of put it on steroids and I think made a lot of people who otherwise would not have felt comfortable to say things publicly come out and say them, Nicole. But to try and draw a parallel between Indigenous people in Australia, I mean, there's no wars going on here, and what's going on between Israel and Gaza, I mean, not only is it wrong, it's just thoroughly offensive.
Yes, it is, Caleb, and it's just bizarre. And I think we should take this opportunity to remind ourselves that it's the Australian Greens that we have to thank for Senator Lydia Thorpe being in federal parliament. Most disturbingly, thank you, Michael, most disturbingly, she's in federal parliament until 2028. I just looked this up, Caleb. I was like, hopefully we'll be rid of her at the next federal election. But I think her term's not up until 2028. So look, she loves these attention-seeking stunts. I just think it's really disappointing to see this behaviour on behalf of our Jewish population in Australia and also on behalf of Israel, all the Jewish people around the world who feel completely under threat at the moment by these sorts of appalling views and protests. And I really, really hope that we might see Senator Thorpe, although I doubt we will, focus on what we should all be focusing on, which is solving Indigenous disadvantage, especially in the remote and rural communities, which should always have been the focus, not these sorts of issues that honestly, I think she does it for attention, but also the failed voice referendum. That $450 million could have helped a lot of women and children in particular in remote Indigenous communities.
When the Victorian government scrapped the Commonwealth Games, I thought this has got to be the greatest backflip of all time. But the more I look at the Victorian government, they keep backflipping. They should have just had a backflipping games or had the Commonwealth Games with an event simply for backflipping, because they've done it again today. One of their key election promises was to put electronic monitoring devices on youth offenders. They've quietly dumped that now, Michael. There you are in Victoria. What is going on with the former Andrews government, now the Allen government? It would seem a very simple thing to do. Have they not looked at Queensland recently?
Soft on crime, against the interests of working class people who have to endure all of this violence from these youth offenders. Our Environment Minister, Lily D'Ambrosio, isn't a cooker, but she wants to take away our gas cookers. I mean, I don't understand the priorities of this government. They are cooked, as far as I'm concerned. That like the federal government, you and Nicole, Caleb, have to understand this is not a normal Labor government in Victoria. They're the socialist left. Many of us fought them for decades just because we knew that if they come to power, this is the kind of policies that we'll have. It's not in the interests of ordinary people for violent youth offenders not to be monitored and prosecuted. It only supports the criminals, and Labor shouldn't be in favour of the criminals. We should be in favour of the poor people, the working class people who are affected by these types.
Well, let's stick with the cooking theme. We were talking the other night about the cost of things at supermarkets. Stephen Miles up in Queensland, the Premier, wrote to the supermarket bosses saying, "Oh, I want to have a round table with you." Well, former Labor Minister Craig Emerson has now been appointed to lead a review into supermarkets because there's been lots of criticism recently that they're failing to pass on lower prices to customers despite paying less for those products from farmers. Nicole, you're down in the southeast of the great state of South Australia, where I also am at the moment. Do you think this is actually going to achieve anything, or is it just window dressing to try and shut people up?
Well, I sincerely hope that it will achieve something for not just farmers, but also consumers out there facing cost of living pressures. This should have been done a while ago by Labor. I think they've been, dragged kicking and screaming to do something or to look to be doing something. Competition hasn't worked. Aldi coming into the market, some very strong independents, especially here in South Australia, as you would know, Caleb, with IGA and Foodland having a really good presence, doesn't seem to have increased competition. But I would imagine, and it'll be interesting to see the parameters of the inquiry, will it be looking at the impact of fuel and transport prices and power prices? And they are all on this Labor government. So I hope it won't just be looking at and I'm sure the supermarkets will probably raise these factors because they undoubtedly have led to them needing to put their prices up. However, we want to see fair prices for consumers, fair prices for farmers, and proper competition. And I'm not sure that we currently have that in the supermarket space.
Yeah, indeed. And the major thing is making sure the farmers get a fair go, as you say, because if they can't make a buck, there's no one to provide the food. It doesn't matter what you end up paying at the supermarket. I mean, you could pay $1 or you could pay $50 for the same item. If none of that is flowing through to the farmer, there will be no item to buy. But I cannot let any discussion of Craig Emerson go by without revisiting one of his finest moments. Here is one of the best things that has ever happened in Australian politics.
No Whyalla Wipeout there on my TV. No Whyalla Wipeout there on my TV. No Whyalla Wipeout there on my TV. Shocking me right out of my brain. Shocking me right out of my brain.
It's just so good. I sent that around to my producers today, and some of them hadn't seen it. I just can't get it. That's the man who's going to fix the supermarkets, apparently. Now, Michael, the federal government obviously has put its plans for a republic referendum on ice, as they say. We saw what happened in The Voice. The promise was if The Voice got up, they would have a referendum on the republic. That ain't going to happen, and fair enough, King Charles is coming to visit the country this year. But apparently it's still necessary to have an assistant minister for the republic. What is Matt Thistlethwaite actually doing?
It's mysterious, isn't it, Caleb? By the way, when you were showing old Emo, I thought you were going to show his famous scene where he admitted to swallowing Julia Gillard's contact lenses. But that Whyalla Wipeout was pretty funny, I have to admit. I don't know what, Albo should be honest and just get rid of this. If we're not going to pursue a Republican, we're not. The younger generation seem to be both more woke and more pro-monarchist. So it's silly having a minister for it if you're not going to pursue it. He should perhaps be focused on defence acquisitions. We're junking 90 Taipan helicopters, which could easily have been just given to the poor Ukrainians who desperately need them for transport on the battlefield. So we're actually disassembling them, even though they're worth millions of dollars each because of some accident in Queensland a few months ago.
And just very quickly, Nicole, a 60-day state of emergency has been declared in Ecuador following an explosion in violence over there. There was a live TV broadcast hijacked by a masked gunman this morning after the country's most watched criminal escaped prison early this week. We've only got 20 seconds, but my God, what a carry-on.
Absolutely, Caleb. It's terrifying, and doesn't it make you feel so grateful to be an Australian where we have the rule of law, where we have a wonderful police force and a great defence force as well to keep us all safe.
Makes me glad I'm on Sky News too. Michael Danby, Nicole Flint, thank you so much for your time.